Everybody, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I've had a 20-minute conversation with my guest. We haven't even hit record yet. So we've already been chatting and having a great, awesome conversation. I love talking to this person, because of the insight and the power and passion that she brings to her podcast and to her writing and everything she does. And we've had a great conversation. I'm really excited to have Corinna here on the podcast. And there's a lot of great stuff we're going to talk about. And she's doing something unique in February for Black History Month. And she's going to talk about that. Her podcast, you're going to fall in love with her because she's just that kind of person. Corinna, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here as my guest co-host.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate you. I appreciate our conversations. You just help spark so much creativity within me. So I appreciate you so much.
Okay. Let's first talk about your show. I want everyone to first listen to this entire podcast, but then come to you, follow, subscribe, love, and fall in love with everything you do. But tell everybody about your podcast.
Yes, it is the Melanin Wellness Podcast, and I address issues on health, mental health, financial health, all of the things that affect the Black community the deepest. And oftentimes we don't have those voices and those spaces in order to find the information that we need from someone that looks like us and often has lived what we've lived. And I find that as a Black woman, that helps so much. And so that's one of the reasons I created the podcast. So I absolutely love the podcast. It's been around since 2022. And I love it. I love it. I have guests on from time to time, but this month in particular, we're having a very special series that I'm running.
Talk about that, because I'm looking through your feed right now. I'm seeing daily episodes. What are you doing? What's going on?
Yes. Now, traditionally, the Melanin Wellness Podcast is a weekly podcast. I release episodes every Wednesday on, like I said, any various topic about health and wellness, right? Yeah. But for Black History Month this year, because of some things that are taking place, the emphasis on Black history has been de-emphasized. And so I wanted to use my voice, my platform, and what little power I do have in order to help educate people, all people, anybody who wants to listen, but specifically my Black community, because there were so many things that I learned during this that I didn't know. And I myself am an herbalist. So I specifically am talking about plant-based medicine and how the enslaved people used plants and plant-based medicine in order to treat themselves during a time in which medical care was sparse or non-existent to them. Mm-hmm. And they had to find ways to heal themselves. And, I talk about the connection between plant medicine and spiritualism and how all of those things are so deeply intertwined for the Black community and for our ancestors. And so every single day, I'm dropping an episode about a new herb, a new medical fact, anything that I feel like people may or may not know.
Black History Month is very important. I'm on a quest, and it's interesting because talking to you makes me very happy. I'm looking for more women in podcasting. Mm. I think we need more perspective from a woman's point of view and perspective in life. There's a lot of people who look like me in podcasting, and that's fine, but I just think we can't dominate the conversation. We need to have more women in podcasting. So first of all, having you on here from that perspective is great. And then to have more Black voices in podcasting. I love the fact that all you need is a microphone and a voice, and you can reach people. And it's not going to be censored. It's not going to be blocked from people. It can go anywhere. And the more people we can have in podcasting, the better. So having you on and having this great connection with you, I learn so much from you. Again, because I'm living from my perspective as a Canadian, as a white guy in his 50s, right? Yeah. And coming and talking to you, I just feel like it's like, sit down, Dave, and listen. Just listen. Because there's things happening in the world that we're being fed and we're being shown, and it's not always accurate.
Correct.
And to get someone else's perspective is great. So the power of podcasting from your perspective. I want to encourage somebody listening and going, Corinna, I can't do this. Like, who's going to care about me? We care about you. We need your voice. We need more people
Yes.
talking up. The power of podcasting for you. What does it mean to you to have a podcast, to share your voice? Talk to me about that.
Oh my goodness. The power of podcasting. You know, I started my podcast not just because I saw that there was a gap when it came to Black wellness, but also because I am naturally an introvert. And if you see me on social media, you probably don't believe that. But I am a introvert by nature. And so I traditionally am often very, very quiet. And so being in front of people and talking often made me very uncomfortable. And podcasting was one of the ways that I was able to unlock my voice. And so I would definitely say to anyone who thinks nobody's going to listen to me, nobody wants to hear what I've got to say, that is not the truth. We are always looking for connection as humans. That's just what we do, right? And so when you find a voice, and one of the most intimate places is the ear.
Yeah.
And yes, and so when you get in someone's ear, that is a powerful place to be. So if you have a message that you feel like can help someone, can educate someone, some way for you to get your voice, your knowledge, your expertise, whatever that might look like, I'm telling you, grab your microphone, hop right on over. For us here in America, the easiest way is to hop on Spotify. They have it's called a Creators app.
Yeah.
It used to be called Anchor.
Yeah.
Now it's Creators. You download that app, you can record right from your phone with those cute little microphones that you plug into that USB, because that's how I started. I was in my closet, y'all. Because the acoustics were better in there. But I was in my closet, and as a matter of fact, I didn't even have one of those little cute USB microphones. I was using a pair of wireless earbuds. The sound was atrocious. It sounded a mess. And I did not have the first clue about editing at that time. But it was me sharing wellness with my community. And there was just this awakening of sorts. I learned so much about myself through podcasting. So if you got a message, if you don't get that microphone and plug it in and press record, we waiting to hear from you.
You're doing this project for the month of February where you're going to do daily episodes.
Yes.
In the process of doing daily episodes compared to doing a weekly podcast, any advantages that you're seeing? Anything? Are you changing? Are you different in the process of doing a daily podcast for a short period of time?
I'm definitely different. I'm tired.
Come on. Okay, how? What's going on?
So the process of so I'll say this. One thing about editing a podcast is once you learn how to do it, you can't not do it. Right. Yeah. So you can't. So the way I used to do my podcast episodes before I learned how to edit them, where I would just record it and do my best to not have any ums and ahs in there. And before I learned how to cut all that out and all that, the scripts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Before I learned how to do all that, I would just record and just put it up how it came out. Now that I know how to edit it, I can't just decide all of a sudden, okay, I'm just going to just toss it up there. I can't do that. So every day, the recording of the episodes, the making sure the sound's correct, the making sure the intro's there, the getting out the ums and the ahs, the adding whatever I need, the call to action at the end, and doing that and having those episodes, because I have specific days during the week that I record podcasts, because I have to balance it out between everything else. So I'm recording 7 episodes as opposed to 1. And even though they are 10 minutes or less, that is still 7 episodes that I have to create titles for, create descriptions for, and I want to make sure that they're SEO so that they're found by the right people, by the people who need to hear it. So yeah, it's a different experience, but I'm enjoying it though. I'm loving it.
Okay. So in November, there's National Podcast Post Month.
Yep.
30 episodes in 30 days. Mm-hmm. And the challenge for podcasters is to do an episode every day in the month of November. So last year, I had 3 podcasts that I do participate. So that's 90 episodes in 1 month. This year I have 4 podcasts participating, so that's 120. So that's ridiculous. That's a lot of Dave in 1 month. But I start on it early. I start in advance. You're doing this kind of real time, which is amazing. But yeah, if you ever want to participate in something like this, then do some planning, look at your calendar and go, you know what, February, Black History Month, I want to share my voice in this month and shine a light on this amazing month of celebration and remembrance. I want to make sure people know. So you could start this in January.
Yep.
You can start in December and just kind of pre-record, get things ready, know what you're going to talk about. That's really important to kind of do some kind of calendar for your regular podcast episodes on Wednesdays. Do you have kind of an idea into the future, calendar-wise, how you are going to do each episode, or they kind of come to you in the moment?
Oh, definitely scheduled. My process is that I have a day that I spend where I just brainstorm. I just brainstorm all the different things. I will take a look at what's trending in the news, what's happening in the news to make sure that there's not something that needs to be addressed like kind of in the moment. But then I'll brainstorm. And so I had this whole spreadsheet of podcast topics all about wellness and how it affects the Black community. So there's pretty much no topic of wellness that doesn't affect the Black community. However, certain things affect us disproportionately. So those are things that I've got to make sure that I'm kind of hammering home. Once I've done that, then I will sit and I will record all the episodes for 1 month. I'll record 4 episodes in one sitting. And then that's when I take my time to edit and schedule them and put them out. So I try to do like a month's worth of content in like 1 week. So that way it gets me ahead by several months so that I don't fall behind and I'm not doing this real time thing. Because real time is hard. I'm going to be honest with you. Real time is super hard. Now, right now, even with the Black History this month, I'm still ahead technically because I'm all the way to day 14 of episodes that have been they are already scheduled. So they're just waiting to drop. Yeah, they're just waiting to drop. So I've only have 14 more days to record. So what I've done is I've written down, gotten my titles, my descriptions, my scripts. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to record those 7, edit them out, schedule them, and I'm good to go. It definitely should take more planning, though. I will say that.
Do you think are you going to do this in the future? Do you think?
Absolutely.
Like next February, possibly in the future?
Absolutely. Okay. But I will plan it. Like I was telling you before we pressed record. First of all, y'all, I want y'all to know that this idea came from Dave. Because when Dave and I did we did a pre-podcast chat. And he shared with me about National Podcast Month for the month of November. I did not know this. And so I said, well, I think I can do that. And I think I'd like to participate this coming November. So I'm definitely going to do it this coming November. By then, I will probably have 2 additional podcasts. But that's a whole nother story. Now, yes, I've already started planning those, by the way. Again, listen, Dave sparks creativity within me, guys. Y'all heard me say that at the very beginning. And yes, he sparked the birth of 2 additional podcasts. But we're not going to talk about those right now. We're going to talk about this. Yeah. So I definitely would suggest to plan it. Now, this was a last minute thing for me. I want to say Dave and I talked January 27th, I believe. And 2 days later, I think it was something like that. 2 days later, I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And my husband said to me, you know that the 1st is Saturday. I said, yeah, I know. I got it. So within the course of about 3 days, I had recorded 7 episodes.
Wow. Wow. So the one thing when I talk to podcasters who are thinking about starting a show and they're like, well, I'll do 1 episode a month. I'm like, that's fine. If that's what you can commit to, that's great. I want you to start. If 1 a month is what you can handle, great. That's awesome. But the more you record and the more you get into this, the more you become comfortable, you'll find your voice.
Yes.
You'll find your audience.
Yes.
You'll be better on the microphone.
Yes.
You'll use less ums and ahs because now you're looking for them.
Yes.
Right? There's little things that are going to just happen just by the frequency of how often you do it. Then you throw in a month of content every day, that also then kind of just puts you another level forward. So like for this show, I do 3 episodes a week, and I've been doing that for three years. So in doing 3 episodes a week, when other people talk about podcasting once a week, I'm doing 3 times more content.
Yes.
So I'm getting faster and better at what I do over the period of time because I do it more often.
Yes.
Now, what do I suggest people do 3 episodes a week? No, that's a lot of work. But if you want to get better at podcasting, if you want to get better at riding a bicycle, if you want to get better at cooking, do more of it.
Yes.
Because by doing it, you're going to be in the mode of creating, and you're just naturally going to get better at what you do. So that's one way to improve as a podcaster.
Agreed. And I can imagine that by the end of this journey, I'm going to sit down, because I like to sit down and take inventory of things that I learned along the way, no matter what journey it is that I'm taking. So I'm going to sit down and write down the ways that I've changed, the things that I've learned throughout the month of February with these daily episodes. And I honestly, I was like, ain't nobody gonna want to listen to me talk that much, and I don't even want to hear me talk that much. But actually, I've been getting comments on the episodes like, wait, I had no idea. Like, this is crazy, some of the things that, I'm learning just from this series. And so, like, I have really enjoyed it. And I know that there are going to be so many takeaways that I take from it. Like, it's been fun, to be honest. It really has. It's been a lot of work, yes, but it has been a lot of fun. And to your point, you absolutely will get more natural and more comfortable, like, on that microphone. The more you do it, you'll start to hear it. Because if y'all could hear some of my very first episodes to the episodes now, it is just this fluidity there and I've seen the growth and this comfortability. Like, it sounds like somebody said to me, you sound like you're sitting in my living room and we're just having a bite to eat, chatting.
Yep.
And I'm like, I love that sounds that way, because I didn't always sound like that, y'all.
So would you say then, Corinna, you found your voice
Absolutely.
now as a podcaster?
Absolutely.
How long did it take for you to feel like you found your voice?
I want to say it took me probably longer than than in the time in which it actually occurred, because I was getting feedback from people who would come to the show and they would say, you found your lane. Like, you are just so natural at it. Like, the way you just weave in and out, like, it was the most comfortable conversation. I didn't feel like I was being interviewed per se. I felt like we were just talking, and it was one of the most comfortable things I've ever experienced. And so of course, I didn't believe that. I'm thinking people are just saying things. And like, my husband was the first to say it. And of course, y'all, if any of y'all are married or got that special someone, it's kind of like your mom saying something. You're like, yeah, okay, babe. All right, thanks. Because you think, of course, he has to say that. But I've heard it so many times. And so I want to say it probably took me 1.5 years to really sit with it and be like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I really do have something here with this. Yeah.
When you start out podcasting, you don't really hear a lot of feedback from listeners. You're still trying to find your voice. You're still trying to find your audience.
Yeah.
But what does it mean for you to actually hear from somebody who listens to the show that you don't know, and they reach out and they leave you some feedback, or they send you an email or DM, something. They reach out and say, Corinna, I love your show. I love what you do, and you're my person. Like, what does that mean to you as a podcaster?
It means everything to me as a podcaster. Like, it's like, I don't know if you've seen those little memes on social media that a person who's a small business owner, and they're doing this little dance when they get an order because they're a small business, and it just means so much. It's the same thing. Yes, it's the same thing for us as podcasters, because oftentimes we will think we are literally talking to the air. We will think nobody is listening and nobody's paying attention, and we are just talking just to be talking and just putting it out there. And to have someone contact you, whether it's social media, email, whether they're leaving you a review, it is just one of those things that just, I know my first one, I cried, because I was just like, oh my God, somebody's really listening.
It's real, right?
Yes.
One of the tools that I'm using is SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com, and people can leave a voice message for free for the podcast, and I get it as an email. It's an attachment, and I can listen to it. I can also respond through voicemail back to them, so we can actually have a voice conversation
Nice.
for free. And to hear somebody from another part of the world reach out and leave you a voice message and say, I love your show.
Yes.
I listen, and I'm listening here. And, that's such an amazing thing to happen. And then one thing I also do is I have on my website just a link to my calendar. And anybody can jump in into my Zoom, and we'll have a face-to-face like this virtually and just talk. And because I have 8 different podcasts, I have had different conversations with different people about different things. So one of my shows is Dad Space, and I have a pod that's where I reach out to dads. And I've had dads reach out to me, and they just want to talk to another dad. I'm not having a good day. I'm not having a good week. And for men's mental health,
Yes.
in November, that's a huge thing.
Yes.
And to be able to sit down with another dad who's not doing well. And I'm not a licensed anything. I'm just a dad with a podcast. But to be able to have that trust that's built up over time with a listener to the point where they feel like I can trust Corinna. I could reach out to her and she's going to make time for me. Like, that's a totally different level than social media, YouTube, anything. Because now I have a relationship that's built over time, and you're my companion in life, even though I have never met you personally. There's a bond between me as a listener and you as a host.
Yes.
Actually, I had somebody reach out to me a little while ago, Corinna, and they said, I listened to your How to Podcast series show, but I have no desire to start a podcast. And I'm like, here I am creating all this content. I have great podcasters come on as co-hosts, and you have no interest? And they're like, no, it's funny. I listen to your show because I like your voice. And I'm like, well, so you're not getting anything out of the content? No, not at all. You could read me a recipe and I'd listen. But I feel like I know you, and you show up on my phone 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So you keep me company when I'm doing these other things in my life. And I've been looking for companionship. And I'm like, if that is the only reason why we podcast, is to be that person for that person, right? Yeah. Who is struggling with loneliness. They're trapped in the house because it's snowing. there's a reason they can't get out, right? And to be that person that builds that world for them. I show up for podcasting just knowing that there's a person listening who has zero interest in what I'm talking about, but they're looking for Dave. They're looking for Corinna in this moment, right?
Yeah.
And that's a bond I haven't seen duplicated anywhere else. What do you think of that?
I agree with that. I was just about to say that, like, it does not matter what other social platforms or what have you. The only thing that even remotely compares to that level of connection is in-person connection,
Right.
And so building that type of community, that strong of a community with someone else and with even a group of people is absolutely amazing. And that speaks to the power of podcasting, the power and the intimacy of just your voice, and the feeling that you can give someone just from your voice. As Dr. Maya Angelou stated, people might forget how you, like, stuff that you say to them, but how you make them feel, nobody, you like that, whether it's good or bad, you're gonna feel that. And so being able to touch someone's life that way with just the sound of your voice is an absolutely amazing thing. So podcasting is transformational. It really is.
What do you think is your responsibility as a host to your audience? What do you think is the most important thing from a podcaster's perspective? How should we treat our audience?
You should treat your audience like their family. And to be honest, that's how I start most of my podcast episodes. I say, hey, what's up, family? Because to me, you are my family. Because you're taking the time, again, I'm in your ear. That is an intimate space. It's very close. to your brain, to your mental.
Yeah.
And so we're talking. We're just having a conversation. We're talking about how to reduce extra sugar, extra fat. So I'm going to talk to you like you're my family, like you're sitting across the dinner table from me. So I'm going to treat my audience like my family. And I think that that is so important as podcasters because of the intimate nature of podcasting. We should be treating our communities because they're not our audience, they're our communities. Treat them like they're your family.
What is the purpose of your podcast? Are you here to make $1 million? Are you to get 100,000 downloads? Are you to connect with one person? If you could kind of boil it down for us, what is the main purpose for your podcast?
The main purpose of the Melanin Wellness Podcast is to at least reach one person that will say, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm not willing to make this complete overhaul of my diet, for example. I'm not willing to give up all my cake. I'm not willing to give up all my salty treats, okay? But I will start to reduce them just a little bit because I know that me taking care of myself is paramount so that I can continue to be here for my family, so that I can continue to not be sick, so that I can continue to learn other ways. And while the whatever I'm saying on the show may not fit exactly, you can take that information. They can take it and say, okay, well, this is how I can make some changes to better my health. So if I can do that for just one person, then I did my job.
Beyond recording, 28 episodes in a month, what else are you doing to improve your skills, your ability as a podcaster? How are you learning? How are you growing to make your show better?
Well, number one, I've definitely listened to How to Podcast.
Okay. All right. That was a setup question right there. Wow. Okay. The check's in the mail. Thank you for that. I
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
I've definitely listened to that because it is helping me to learn things. Because when I started podcasting, I didn't know anything about podcasting and I had no one to teach me, no one to guide me. So learning as much as I can, like even though I've been podcasting as long as I've been podcasting, there is still so much that I can learn. And I enjoy listening to Dave's podcast too, y'all. Like I absolutely just love listening to the way that he talks. I've even listened to Dad's Space, okay? And I'm not a dad.
Come on.
Yes, and I told my husband to listen to Dad's Space. He enjoys it as well.
There you
And
go. Okay, one thing I'll tell you about Dad Space, just as we stop for a second, the audience for Dad Space, it's a podcast for dads by dads. Okay, that's the whole focus.
Yes.
So I'm not talking to men, all men. Yeah. I'm not talking to single men. I'm talking to dads, really. Like that's my main focus, right? But 67% of my audience are female for Dad Space. And I find that to be the biggest joy for me. Because when I first started out as a podcaster, I wanted everybody to hear my podcast. I didn't want to focus it so narrow that I excluded somebody, right?
Yep.
And you do a beautiful job on your show.
Thank you.
You know who you're talking to. But it's not like you're ignoring everyone else.
Right.
Anyone's welcome to listen.
Yes.
Everyone's welcome to be part of the podcast.
Absolutely.
But you know who you're talking to. And you target what you're saying to that person, again, feeling like you're in your living room with you. So I love that we can target our audience down to a certain group of people.
Yes.
But then throw the doors wide open to everyone.
Yes.
So whether you're a dad or not, welcome to the Dad Space podcast, right?
Yes.
I want that feeling for all podcasters. So kind of just in that for this moment, how do you throw the doors open to people so that more people can come and be a part of your community, even though you're kind of focused on a certain group?
Absolutely. One of the ways that I do it is the style of my show, the conversational style. It is meant to be warm and inviting and welcoming and just like, hey, like I think I might like her if I met her in real life. And that was always the goal. Like, even though I had my specific target audience, I always wanted it to feel welcome, warm, and inviting. And so I hope that I've done a pretty decent job at doing that. From the feedback I've gotten, yeah, like it does feel warm and like they're like, when it's time for it to go off, I don't want it to go off because I'm like, well, wait, like I got Like this was fun because it didn't feel, again, like an interview. I always was afraid, especially because of the topic, which is health and wellness, of sounding like a spoken word encyclopedia of sorts.
Right.
I did not want that. I was like, I don't want to sound like a medical dissertation. Like, I'm like, that's just nah. Like, nobody wants to
Yeah.
listen to that. Even the people who have to listen to it don't want to listen to it. And so, that was, again, the power of podcasting allowed me to be able to get behind the mic. And because I didn't have the anxiety or fear of someone sitting in my face, I was able to be myself and create that warm, welcoming, comforting environment that anybody can come into.
Being Black History Month again, one thing that where I live in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, we're close to Niagara Falls and the U.S. border. There is one U.S. National Historical Site that's not in the U.S. It's in my city.
Wow.
It's in St. Catharines. It's a U.S. historical site in Canada. There's only one. It's called Salem Chapel. Salem Chapel is one of the final stations in the Underground Railway. So, blacks leaving and trying to escape the U.S. and slavery would find solace and comfort and safety in Canada. And that church is still standing, is just about 10-minute drive from my house. I had a fellow podcaster come up to visit. Him and his wife came up from Indiana to come and visit us here in Canada for a few days. And we had a chance to go and be in Salem Chapel.
Wow.
And he's a black speaker in the U.S. He's very into the history of slavery and all of that. He really, and this was like his, you could go visit Niagara Falls, you can go see all the sites. But for him, this was a very special spiritual moment to be in that place built by slaves seeking freedom, but here in Canada. And as a white 50-ish male, I sat in that church and just had a moment of just looking around going, the people that found safety here in this space. It was such a moment of like, I don't know, it felt really very special for me to sit there and hear the stories, see all the artifacts and everything from the history of that building and everyone that found freedom in there. I just felt so special to be in that space. So being that this is Black History Month and being that we want more voices in podcasting, can you please, from your perspective, speak to that person that's thinking, Corinna, again, you said it kind of earlier, nobody's going to care about my voice, nobody's going to care about my stories. Before we hit record, you shared a story about your kids leaving home, going out and not sure what it's going to be like, whether they're going to come back because of the temperature and what's going on in the world. And as I sit here, I've never had to think about that. I've never had to worry about that to the extent that you have. So in that moment, I think we need more people to talk about this and talk about it from the perspective that you're living it. So I want more people, Black people, to come to podcasting, share their thoughts, share their story, build community, be a voice. I just have this desire to see more people do this because, again, we're unfiltered. We can go anywhere. We can share our thoughts.
Yes.
So please, can you talk to the community from your perspective and why we need you here in podcasting, why your voice matters? I really want to encourage somebody listening that's on the fence. They're like, I want to share a message, but I don't really feel like I have what it takes to do this. Can you please talk to them?
Absolutely. So right now in this world, not just in the States, but in the world, there is a need for Black voices. They are needed more now than they have ever been because there are so many attempts to erase history and rewrite history that we need voices that are not afraid to speak up and say, no, this is really what's happening. The story that I shared with Dave a little while ago was about the fact that as a Black woman in America, I have Black children and a Black husband. And because of the state of what is happening in our country currently, it gives me PTSD daily. Because every time that my husband and my children leave out that front door, I don't know if they're going to come back home that night. And that is a feeling that I can't put into words. That is an anxiety that many Black mothers, Black fathers feel across this country all the time. Like worried about my son when he goes to get in his car and drive to go to school or to go to work. Those things are absolutely petrifying. And if you think that someone doesn't need to hear that or that nobody's going to listen to that, you're wrong. There are so many of us that need a voice. Now, because y'all, I can't talk about everything, okay? Like, I can pick up the mantle and I can talk from my perspective and talk about my lane, which is health and wellness, but I can't talk about every lane. And so there's someone out there that has a different perspective that wants to speak to their experience. And their expertise is completely different from mine. We need to hear from you. Black voices are so needed, especially in the podcast space. And like Dave has said, this is one place where they cannot censor us. They can't censor us. They can't keep our voices from amplifying to the places that they need to go.
Now, if somebody's listening to this, Corinna, and they're like, I thanks, Dave, for the podcast, but I'm really identifying with Corinna in this moment. If they had a question around podcasting or starting a show and they're very basic beginning level, and they're like, could I reach out to you and talk about your show and how you did this? Like, would you be open to coaching someone that's listening that just, they're curious, but they don't know where to start?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They could reach out to me. They could send me an email to the Melanin Wellness Podcast at gmail.com. And I'll be more than happy to hop on a Zoom with you and just talk and, listen to your perspective, listen to your ideas, and give you what limited knowledge I have. I'll be more than happy to share. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find the answer for you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because I think that's another thing too. Like, we're going to identify with people in our life, and some people are going to resonate better with us. Mm-hmm. So I want to just leave that door open as well. So
absolutely
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's wrap up. I know you're going to come on my Living the Next Chapter podcast to talk about your book as well, which is exciting. Yeah. So that gives me another opportunity to talk to you, which I'm very happy about. I would love to have you come back sometime. Yeah. Give us updates on your podcast. Give us updates on your journey. I know the audience loves to reconnect with past guests who come back and tell us more about your show. And so I'm going to keep that door open, please. If you ever have an opportunity, I'd love to have you back.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for the future invitation. I appreciate you so much, Dave.
Excellent. So it's, again, February, daily episodes from Corinna on her show.
Yes.
You got to go make sure you listen to them all. You listen to every episode she's got. You're going to love everything she does. Make sure you leave an amazing review. Make sure you leave all your ratings and everything you could do. And I want you to tell somebody about this podcast. Okay, I really want you to share it with somebody. You know who this podcast is for. You know who's going to love this show. So not only listen to yourself, recommend it to one of your best friends, family members, so they can fall in love with Corinna's show as well. Corinna, thank you so much for doing this. We'll have links to everything in the show notes. I'm excited for your journey. If you ever need help, I'm just a phone call away, just an email away. I'd love to be in your corner. Thank you for listening to the show, too.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you.
Excellent. Everything in the show notes, as always. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please go support yet another amazing podcaster in the space. Corinna, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast all the way through to the end. I love having these great guest co-hosts on the show to share their podcasts with you. You have some homework to do. And what I'm asking of you is to go check out our featured guest co-host today. Go over and listen to their podcasts. The links are always in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go and give them your love and support. And I think if we can all do that for each other, podcasting will be a lot more fun for all of us. So it's time to do what you've asked others to do for you. It's time to do for this guest co-host. Links in the show notes. Go over and check out their show and leave them a review, do the follow, go listen to their episodes in full, the entirety of an episode, which again shows to the apps that it's a good podcast because you're going there and you're staying to the end. It's probably one of the best ways you can help a podcaster grow their audience and be shown to more people is by simply going and listening wherever you listen to the very end, like you're doing right now here. This is the perfect way to signal to wherever you're listening on, this is a podcast worth promoting. And all of the apps want you to stay on as long as possible. So go over and listen to our guest co-host episode and leave them some feedback. If they have a buy me a coffee, send them a coffee. If they have a speak pipe, send them a voice message. If they have an email, send them an email. If they're on Instagram, send them a direct message. Do something to support our guest co-hosts. They've given up their time to be here with you, to be here with me, and we can give that back to them with time and attention, our love, our support. Thank you for doing all that for me as well. Here on the How to Podcast series, we'll talk to you soon for our next episode.